Hey, good morning, everyone, and happy Easter to you. My name is Pastor Ricky, and it's a joy to be with you this morning on Easter Sunday, or as we like to call it here at our church, it's Resurrection Sunday. And if you haven't noticed just yet, we're pretty excited. We're pretty fired up about today because this is the day that has literally changed everything. This is the day that's not only changed everything in history, we have found, like you heard from Jeff's testimony, that this is the day that has changed our lives. This is the day there's a before we were, who we were before Christ, and now after we have come to Christ. And just like on that week, the week when Jesus rose from the dead, what was before Easter Sunday and the hurt and the pain and the lead up to the crucifixion and all that we saw with that, and then the waiting on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon, only to see all that pushed away on Sunday morning. And it changed everything when Jesus got up, his heart started pumping again, and he walks out of the grave in newness of life and then offers that unto all of us who have put our faith in Jesus Christ. And so it is because of Jesus that we can say there was a before and there's an after. Now we have found hope. And so we want to rejoice in that. We can't help but contain the enthusiasm that brings to our hearts. We want to get into God's Word, though, this morning. So I want to invite you, if you would, to take your copy of the Bible out and turn over to the book of Ruth. If you've not been here before, this is Harvest Bible Chapel, and so the Bible means a lot to us. We study that every single week, and we're going to do that again this morning. So go ahead and find the Bible, to find the book of Ruth. If you're kind of new to the Bible, you're not sure where that is, Ruth is the 8th book from the beginning. And so you can find the beginning, that's Genesis, count 8 in, Ruth will be there, and you'll be able to follow along with us. Just for the sake of brevity, here is our big idea for the morning. This is the idea that we want to continue to hit over and over again, that we want to walk away from this morning, and it is this, that Easter means that there's a before and after for me. Easter means that there's a before and there's an after, not just for Jesus, but because it happened to Jesus, now it happens to me. And we live in a culture that absolutely loves before and after stories, don't we? Have you noticed that? We are hopelessly in love with redemption type of movies. The idea that one can overcome the past and get back what was lost. We are all saps for those kinds of stories and those kinds of movies. And if Andy Dufresne and Shawshank Redemption, if that's not your style, that's my style that I enjoy. If that's not what you like, then consider how unexplainably you are drawn to fixer-up reality TV shows. All right, why is that a thing? And why do we love coming back to that over and over again? You know what's going to happen, don't you? You know every time you turn on the TV and you watch that show, it's going to be the same story and over again. They're going to buy a clunker. They're going to pick the clunker for sure. They're going to remodel it. There's always going to be a problem that's going to need to be overcome somewhere in of the story. There's going to be a big, massive beam that's going to need to be removed in order to have the open concept they're looking for in the house. But they overcome it. They find a way to shimmy the wall in there, and eventually they end up finishing the project. It looks absolutely amazing. And what happens when you're done watching that? There's two things. Part of you, you feel good about what has taken place. You're excited for the couple. But then on the other side of you, you're kind of bummed. You kind of feel kind of bad because you realize that they just fixed their house in 30 minutes to look better than the house that you have that you've been working on and living in for 30 stinking years, right? And so it's this love for redemption. And you know it's going to happen. You know that's going to be the story every single time. And yet what do? You watch them over and over again, and so do I. Why? Because we're drawn to redemption stories. All right, now let's get serious for a minute and ask, well, why? Like, why are those, do they grab our hearts? And it's because internally, on some level, we also hope and long for that those redemption stories that happen to homes and other people's lives, we're secretly hoping, longing that would happen to us. That's why you loved Jeff's testimony a few minutes ago of him explaining how God has redeemed him, how God has brought him back, and he's changing him, remodeling him, and that captures those kind of stories. I love them too. And it's because we are something inside of us. God has hardwired us in DNA to want to enjoy and to delight in that. And redemption just means that. Redemption means just to get back what was lost or given away. And so we enjoy that. And right now, I don't have to tell you that. We all feel that. We want to get back what was lost before coronavirus hit us. Like, we're all longing for that. We want to get back to before. We want to get back to life, to be the same again with our work and with our family, and hang out with our friends again. But can I encourage you to think about this morning on Easter Sunday, that it's deeper than that. There's a deeper desire that goes on. There's a longing that we have for a redemption, not just of those things to get back what we lost now, but a desire for redemption for even our very lives. There's a heart theme that goes on in every person wanting that to find fullness of life, to find ultimate satisfaction, to find and to seek rest, and to get back to where we started from, and to go back from the very beginning, before whatever decisions we have made or path we have been on, we to be truly happy in this life. We all desire to overcome all that's happened and hope that there are better days ahead. Like, I resonate with that, and I think everybody in our church resonates with that, and we resonate with you. Some of you have been chasing that carrot for a long time. Some have been wanting and hoping and looking and longing for redemption for a long time, but yet no matter where you have looked, it's been elusive for you. It's been slippery. You can't ever grab a hold of it. And still, even this morning at your home, watching me right now, you've not found it even just yet. You haven't found it in any of the self-help books and gurus that you have grabbed a hold of. You've not found it in self-improvement. You've not found it in other people. You've not even found it in religion or at the bottom of a bottle or in sex or relationships. No matter where you have turned, it's just not been there. But you know what? You're not alone in that. And yet I've got good news for you today. Like, I'm telling you that Jesus is alive. It's Resurrection Sunday and Easter. Listen, if it means anything, it means this. It means that there can be a before and after for you. That there is redemption that is available. The redemption that took place in Jesus' life is also available for us as well. And the good news is the chapter that we're looking at right now, the book that we are looking at right now, the book of Ruth, is about that whole topic and about that whole theme. Ruth is about the road to redemption, and Ruth shows us how redemption is even possible through Jesus Christ. And so, are you there? Are you found Ruth chapter 3? Are you going to follow along with us here? Now, obviously, if I say Ruth chapter 3, we are jumping into the middle of a conversation. We're jumping into the middle of a book. And so I want to just recapture, and recalibrate our minds and make sure we know what's happening. Let me explain where we are. Ruth is about redemption. Ruth is about in 12 centuries before Jesus died and rose again. There was a Jewish woman named Naomi, and she moved with her husband and her 2 sons away from their home in Bethlehem, the same Bethlehem that we know that Jesus would later be born in. And they moved to a country to the east called Moab. And this was not so great of a place. This wasn't a great move for them. This was full of the enemies of God's people that were just located there, and it didn't turn out so great. And this is where the redemption piece started. While they were there, Naomi's husband passes away. Eventually, her 2 sons, they also pass away as well, leaving Naomi destitute. The only thing she has left now, when you read Ruth chapter 1, are her 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth. But in the middle of that, Naomi then decides, now it's time for me to go back home and go back to Bethlehem. I'm going to get back on the road to redemption. And she gets up and she goes back. What about her 2 daughter-in-laws? Orpah decides to stay behind and stay in Moab. And Ruth, shockingly, in a twist of events and in a surprising move, actually turns her life over to the Lord. She is converted to the God of Israel, to the God of the Bible. And she shockingly picks back up and goes with Naomi back to Bethlehem. And all of that took place in chapter number 1. In chapter number 2, Ruth, who at this point has really nothing going for her, she goes looking for food. She goes looking to find a job. Well, in chapter 2, in the providence of God, she meets a man named Boaz, and she begins to work in this man's field. He provides food for her. He provides protection for her. And finally, for her, things are starting to look a little bit on the upside for both Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. She has her basic needs are being met at this point, and yet there is still an incredible amount of difficulty of just daily life that they are facing. Which brings us to chapter number 3. And what's going to happen at that moment is what we want to bring to you this morning. We're going to read chapter 3. We're going to read it from the very verse 1 to the very end. Now, spoiler alert on chapter 3, okay? I'm going to tell you now so that you know ahead of time. There are some bizarre and strange things that are mentioned in Ruth chapter number 3. And the Bible doesn't hide those things, but it's a different culture and a different time. We'll explain them as we go. Don't let that freak you out. We're going to walk through this passage together. But let me read Ruth chapter 3 all the way to the end. It says, Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to Ruth, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing his barley field tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, anoint yourself, put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place and where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down." This is getting to the weird part. "And he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say I will do." So she went to the threshing floor. She did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." And he said, "May you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning." So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before anyone could recognize another. And he said, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." And he said, "Bring the garment you are wearing and hold it out." And she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her, and she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did you fare, my daughter?" And she told her all that the man had done for her, saying, "These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, 'You must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law.' And she replied, 'Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest until he settles the matter today.'" So there's a lot there that we want to unpack this morning, but remember an idea that was this, is that Ruth is about redemption, and Ruth is about, there's a before and after that's available to me. It teaches us some lessons. I want to bring out 3 lessons that I think that Ruth in chapter 3 really capture for us. And here's the first one. The first one is this: we are all wishing for redemption. We're all wishing for redemption. Chapter 3 opens, and it's likely been a number of weeks and possibly even months since she's been working in the fields of Boaz, living with her mother-in-law. Well, one day her mother-in-law Naomi comes to Ruth and she says, "You know what? I cannot help in my heart but to wish good for you, or to wish well for you." She says, "I want things to rest for you, that it may go well with you." And I know that no doubt she's thankful for the temporary help that's come about. She's blessed by what's happened in Ruth chapter number 2, and how Boaz has come to benefit and to help her, and all of those things. And they're scraping by. They're getting past it all. But Naomi, in her love for her, what a great mother-in-law is that. In her love for her, she said, "I can't help but want more for you. I want more." She said, "I want rest for you." And the idea of rest in that culture that she's referring to is the rest and security that you would find in a husband. She's saying it's time for you to get a husband. I want you to have the stability that a marriage would provide in that kind of a culture in which they lived. And she's saying, I want you to be able to get back that security and that rest that you had before that has been lost. I want you to find redemption in some capacity here before all this crisis came to our family. I want it to go well with you. She's just expressing the desire that she has for Ruth to have a life, to have a future. It just can't stay where we are right now. I want you to have a hope. And I'm sure Ruth felt the same way. And as the chapter bears out Ruth's desires and Naomi's desires, they are in a collision course. They agree together. They're in the same position. And it's the same desires of our heart. What Naomi wished and what Ruth wished is the same one we have. We were wired this way. We want rest. We want stability. We want permanence. We want the fullness of life. But every time we turn around, it's just so elusive. Like, I think I've got it. And yet it's like the wind that was gone again. We're aware that it's hard to find. We're aware that the world is broken. If you didn't know that a few weeks back before, you know it now. If you didn't know it, realize that the world is broken last Easter in 2019, you know it for sure in 2020. It's true for you and it's true for me. And we're not talking about right now. We don't know that the world is broken in some kind of a distant way. It's not a far away a method. It's not something that's happened at a school shooting in Texas somewhere. It's right here where you and I live. And it's in our homes and it's in our living room. It's right here and it's touching people that we know. And it's touching our very lives. And it's every day. And every single passing week with the virus that comes through, we're all hoping for the future. We're wanting to get past this. We're sensing that. And some of you are feeling that pinch of the world's brokenness, maybe for the first time in a long time. Like, I don't know who all's listening and watching this morning, but some of you, life has been pretty good, but you're feeling it now. Others of you, you've been searching for this for a long time, long before coronavirus hit us. And the things that you're experiencing now through the virus are just compounding what you had before and just strengthening the desire that you have for a greater satisfaction. It's just all come together now at a head. And it doesn't matter which one of those two people you are, if it's the first time in a long time or the first time, or you've been experiencing this for some months now. But the truth of the matter is that coronavirus, when this is all over with and we go back to life as normal, and if we were to even get all the things back that we've lost the last couple of weeks, even when those things come back, there's still going to be a part inside of all of us wishing for more. But when you get back your family and your friends and your job, you're still going to have that sense of emptiness. There's still going to be a sense of void, a sense of boredom with the things of this world. Even when the sports come back and the shopping, we're all going to want, there's got to be something more, a greater lasting satisfaction. And that's Ruth and Naomi here. They've gotten through the very first wave. The initial hit that came, that they've overcome that. They're going and they're surviving. The quarantine, it's just the two of them, but they're surviving and they've settled into the new norm that's come. But here they are in the middle of that. They're still wishing for more. They're still wanting redemption. They're saying they're still wanting more. This cannot be all that there is. Is this really all that God has for me? You ever thought that way before? That I have. You think, is this my marriage and my kids and my family? Is this depression, this addiction, this loneliness that I feel? Is that all that's going to be? Is it always going to be the exact same way? Can I tell you that sense of need that you feel right there is actually incredibly important? You know that there's no remodeling job that ever happens without actually getting to the bottom of where the house is to begin with. You have to go back to the bottom. You have to go at some points down to the very studs. You have to wade through the layer after layer of wallpaper to actually get down to the root before you can actually start building again. And Ruth chapter 3 is reminding us of that we all wish for that. When we get down to it where there's a desire for that, we want it. But then Ruth 3 shares this with us. We are all utterly unable to acquire redemption on our own. Like Ruth 3 is teaching that as well. Verse 2 is the record of Naomi's plan that she has for achieving redemption. She's been thinking about this. And like I said earlier, I want to admit that there's some things in her plan that are just like weird. Like it's hard to explain. And it's kind of weird for an Easter sermon. Like I get all that. But she begins by she's asking the question of Ruth, hey, you know that guy Boaz, did you know that he's our relative? Yeah, you know that Boaz that you've been working for the last couple of weeks and months and working alongside of the other women that are there, he's our relative. And that may not seem like a very big deal to you and to me, but Naomi is, by mentioning that, she's actually referring to a custom in Israel at that time known as a person who was a kinsman redeemer. A kinsman, somebody's related to them. A redeemer has the capacity to redeem. This was a special role that was given to Israel by the Lord. Check this, for times of disaster and times of great tragedy. So just think about that. The heart of our God, the heart of the God of the Bible is that he would lay a plan down when people that would go to powerless places, to hopeless scenarios, that he would say, I've made an allowance for how to get yourself out of that. It is by a redeemer and is by this particular role that's in the life of his people. And you say, well, what's that got to do with Ruth and Naomi here? Well, again, it's this idea of a kinsman redeemer. In that day, like land continuity was a big deal. Family continuity was a massive deal as well. To have permanence of a family, the permanence of a family name was incredibly important to that. And so to protect them, God made special provisions for the land and for the family to get them back whenever they were lost. And so, for example, if a woman's husband passed away and there was no son to carry on the family name, and you had that sense it's been lost, I've got no son and I've got no husband, like the family has been lost. Well, according to God's plan, it's not lost with God. Like God had a plan for that kind of a tragedy. The closest male relative was to marry the widow and to raise a son, and that son would take on the family name of the husband who had passed away. It was a way of redemption. Catch that? It was a way of getting back the name. All right, very important to grab a hold of that. Another example would be if a person lost their land, a family lost their land, they pawned it off for the money or the resources that they needed. They were a destitute place, and so they've sold it. Well, could you ever get it back? Could you ever get the land back that you had lost? Could you get the source of a permanence, a source of security and rest? How could you get it back? Well, the Redeemer, the kinsman Redeemer, could step in and redeem it and to restore it and give it back to the family. So the Redeemer, his job was to be a provider. His job was to be a protector. He was there, a God-ordained person to step in moments of danger and trouble and need. And it was just, this is what God had to give him because he loved his people. Now the Redeemer had to have three qualifications. He had to, number one, be related to them. That's what the kinsman part. He had to be willing to do it, but he also had to be able. Does he have the means to buy it back? Does he have the means to carry it through? So Naomi is noticing that she realizes that she needs a redeemer. She is recognizing that she cannot do this on her own. When she is saying to Ruth, hey, did you realize that Boaz is our redeemer? She is in her mind recognizing that we cannot redeem ourselves. We do not have the capacity amongst ourselves to get it back, to get our name back, to get our family back, to get the land back either. And so when she is suggesting that they look to Boaz, she's affirming, she's stating that we cannot do it alone. That the boulder that we're facing is too big. The rock that we are underneath is too heavy. The burden which we have is too much. We can't handle it. We can't redeem ourselves. We can't get it back ourselves. We need someone outside of us, someone different from us, someone stronger than us, someone who has resources that we do not possess, that we'll never, ever possess. We'll never be able to get it all back again. We need someone who is appointed by the Lord to be our help when all else is lost. Someone who is worthy, someone who is willing, someone who is able. And from that point on, it's just a matter of, is this Redeemer that they are thinking about, is he willing? Is he willing? And once he is, if he is, the question will be to notice and to watch. Once once he is willing, that he is going to be the one who is going to accomplish everything. Boaz is going to be the one to accomplish everything for Ruth and for Noah and for Naomi. Listen to me, everything. That he is going to be the one who's going to make it all happen. They're going to put themselves at his mercy and ask of him. And then from then on, even as we read there, at the end of chapter 3, she says, now we just have to wait. We just have to sit down and he will take care of it. He will tell us what to do. He'll take care of it. It's all on him now. We are powerless against this. It must be him. This is what Ruth and Naomi are agreeing upon. Now, the plan that she describes there, beginning in verse 3, is bizarre. It's not lost on us how she goes about that. But again, it's a different culture. And if you notice with cultures, they just do things differently, especially when it comes to weddings. When you think about weddings and traditions that go along with that, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened with that. I was even thinking this week about, if people came to our culture or immigrated to our country and they were to look at how we do weddings, what in the world, who thought of the idea of sitting the bride down, removing the garter off her legs in the public of everybody, and then tossing it over your shoulder to a group of weird single guys over here? I mean, that's just strange when you think about it. Or the idea that when the bride and the groom run out of the church house, we're going to pelt them with rice. We're going to hit them over the head with rice as they're getting into the limo to ride off to the honeymoon. I mean, I know we do it, but when you think about it and you stop and pause, that's bizarre and strange. All right, so let's just give them a little bit of grace here that what's happening in Ruth chapter 3 is strange, but we've got our own strange customs as well. But the whole idea of this going to the field, laying down, uncovering the feet, this is a way of proposing marriage. All right, if you want to just cut it down for the sake of brevity, that's what's taking place. She's giving Boaz the indication that she is willing, as a significantly younger woman, to welcome him to marriage. All right, so that's the idea. Hey, Naomi says, change your clothes. All right, go, hey, make yourself look good, spray on some perfume, put the makeup on, go and let him know that you are an eligible maiden for this. And so she goes. And she's like, I want you to wait until evening time. Make sure he's done with work. He's ate his meal. He's winding down for the evening. He's laying down next to the field, next to the barley, protecting it from no one else who's going to come in and steal that. So this is a very public place. Lay down, uncover his feet. So in the middle of the night, when his feet get cold, he's going to wake up. He's going to notice you're there, and he'll tell you what to do next. And Ruth says, okay, I'll do that. Now, hear me on this. None of that is meant to be interpreted by you or by me as anything inappropriate taking place there. All right, this is not any kind of Jerry Springer type of stuff that's taking place there, but nor is it being recommended. All right, it is just describing their culture. Ladies, this is not recommended for you. This is not how to acquire a husband. All right, if you try to attempt that, the guy's not going to like you. He's going to think you're weird. All right, guys, if you go about and you try to do what Ruth did, they're going to lock you up and put you into jail. This is not designed to recommend this path of acquiring a spouse. But Ruth does that. And in verse 9, Boaz wakes up. He wakes up and says, who are you? And she tells, I'm Ruth, your servant. And she essentially is proposing marriage. And she's insinuating that if you will redeem me, that'd be awesome. I want you to do that. Now, it turns out that Boaz, he'd apparently been thinking about this because he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's got all this data on his head. He says, I'd love to redeem you, but there's another guy who's a closer relative than I am. And if he'll redeem you, great. But if he will not, he says, I will redeem you. He says, as the Lord lives, I will do it. And as the rest of the chapter and the rest of the book unfolds, he does exactly that. He goes and he redeems Ruth and he redeems Naomi. And Ruth's life is never going to be the same again. And Naomi's is going to be changed as well. Chapter 4 is just glorious. It's awesome. And we're going to look at that really in close and in depth next week. But for now, I just want you to see those 2 points that we have seen so far. The first one was this, is that we all need redemption. And the second one is so important that we cannot do it on our own. Right, what was happening there, described about Ruth, is exactly us. We cannot redeem ourselves. We cannot redeem ourselves. We cannot get ourselves back no matter how hard we try. Just like they needed someone greater and stronger and mightier than they were, we're in the exact same place. See yourself there. You have to. But then now see this. How does this relate to Easter? It's this, is that Jesus Christ is our great Redeemer. There's the niche. There's the connection there. Jesus Christ is our great Redeemer. If you say, why is this story in the Bible? Boaz is a picture of the Redeemer. Like Boaz was a real historical figure. The story is completely true. But its ultimate value is that it illustrates a greater and a more significant, a mightier, a more profound Redeemer, and even a greater redemption story. One that applies to everybody who would turn to this Redeemer. No matter what language you speak, no matter where you are from, no matter what money you have in the bank or where you find yourself on the social ladder, it is for everyone. It's to everybody, every family on the earth, not just to Ruth's family. This is just one isolated family meant to point to every family because it has a hope in a Redeemer. And it's speaking about Jesus Christ. It's speaking about someone who is going to be born much later, who would actually be a relative, a great-great-great-great-grandson of Ruth and Boaz, and his name is Jesus Christ. You say, you sure about that? I am. Ephesians 1 verse 7 says this. We are told that in Jesus Christ, we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to his riches of grace. In Jesus Christ, we have redemption, Ephesians 1 says to us. You see, how can we be redeemed? How can we get back to God? How can we get back what was lost? How can I get that back and be restored to that? You see, we're all like Ruth in the story here. And of course, right now, we all feel vulnerable and in danger of the tragedy we face. We're all facing as a country, but it's worse than just a virus. It's worse than that. We are facing a need for redemption on a far greater level. And we are totally unable to fix ourselves. We are unable to undo the sin that's led us here. It's impossible to fix and to pick up the pieces of your life. And I can't pick up the pieces of my life either. Like we are powerless. We are in a spiritual mess that we can't fix. Like the best we could do was just to smear the mess even more so than it already has been made. We are unable to undo what's been done to find real and lasting satisfaction. We need someone mightier than us to deal with our sin, to deal with the mistakes that we have made and our rebellion and all the consequences that the fallout of that's led us to where we are right now. Like that is what we need. And God, in his graciousness, has sent his Son, Jesus Christ. He's intervened, and he's come to rescue. He's come to restore. He's come to bring redemption, real redemption, by canceling out our sin, Ephesians 1 is saying, that stands in the way. How do we get back to God? Our sin is there. It must be moved out of the way. And Jesus, just like Boaz, qualifies. He's the only one who qualifies to accomplish that. Why? Because he does three things. Number one, he's related to us. Just like Boaz had to be related to Ruth, he's related to us. Listen, God became a man. Like he became a human being. Like God, catch that, God became a human being to die on a cross for other human beings to save us. Number two, he's also got the resources that we do not to save us. He lived a perfect life when we could not. He died a death that we could not. All the wrath of God's punishment for sin was placed upon him, and he bore it all when we could not. And when he overcame death and walked out of the grave, we could not. Like he has accomplished it all. Just like Boaz was the guy to do it all, Jesus is the one who has done it all for us. He's conquered the grave, even the greatest enemy. He has done it all. And he's done it for us. I want to read this from the book of Romans. Romans 5 says, for while we were still weak, when we were in our weakness, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. And verse 8 says that God shows his love for us, that while we were still sinners, still hopeless, not that we were great and glorious, that we could lift ourselves up. No, we were hopeless. We were enemies. And yet there, he says, Christ died for us. And says we shall be saved by him. We can be reconciled by his life, Romans says. He's done these things when we could not. And number three, he's willing to do it. He's related. right? He's got the capacity, the resources that we do not. And number three, he's actually willing to step into your life and mine. You realize that Jesus went to the grave and back to redeem us. He went to the grave and back. That is the measure of his love, to go all the way to there in order to redeem us, to unstuck us, to lift us out of spiritual poverty and pull us up out of brokenness and of our sin. He has done that to recover what sin took away, to recover a relationship that had been lost. You realize this is why Jesus came. Luke 19:10 says that the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Like it was lost, and I want them to get it back. They want them to come back to the Lord. How? I've come to do it. That's why he's come for us. He's willing to do it. Mark 10:27 says, nothing is impossible with God. Like let's talk about salvation. There is no one who is a lost cause that cannot be redeemed, that cannot be saved, no matter where they are or what language they speak or where they have been. They can be redeemed. All things are possible. And he's the one who's done it all. We just sit down and watch. We sit down like Ruth said to Naomi. We just sit down and watch what Jesus Christ has done on the cross. We look at him. We look to him because he set his face to accomplish it for us. And he gives us an after. He gives us the after, no matter how bad the before was. Just like Jeff's testimony that you heard earlier today. The resurrection that we're celebrating today, that just proves to the world that Jesus is able to do these things. How do you know? Ricky, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? He's able because the resurrection shows his power and capacity. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? You know, we all love those redemption stories. Like, what if I told you that all the redemption stories, that the desires that we have for that, what if I said they really are true? I don't mean like all the Cinderellas of the world. I mean like the idea that one can be restored and one can be redeemed, but at a level far deeper than any of those stories would ever imagine or lead you to believe, but a level far deeper that reaches inside of your very heart and brings life to that and changes you for this life, but even greater capacity than that, a capacity to change you for eternity's sake, that the redemption that is going to last, not a home that's going to restore and then need to be restored again, but one that is restored, a life that is reclaimed, that will last them for forever. Jesus is able to do that no matter how tightly the mess has been wadded up of your life. There is one mighty enough, renowned enough, glory enough to restore. And his name is Jesus Christ. And he is risen from the dead. And it comes down to that. And it comes down to this. Will you call out to him in faith like Ruth did? Will you look to him? We say, Lord, spread your wings of salvation over me. I'm coming to you for help because only you can do it. Listen, if you're watching this, you're invited by a friend, you're here, you stumbled upon it, and you're saying, hey, this is me. I need restoration, and I love for the other things in my life to be restored, but first and foremost, I need my heart to be restored. I need God to save me from my sin. We want to help you to that. We want to help you to put your faith in Jesus Christ. Look to him, turn from sin, trust in Christ, and we want to have some people there to walk alongside of you. I'd love for you to just do this. Just email us. Just let us know what you're thinking. Email us at pray@harvestbuffalo.org, and we will follow up with you this week. We will get in touch. We love Easter Sunday to be a day of restoration for you. Can I pray for you right now? Can I pray for you and our church family? God, thank you, Lord, for your goodness and grace. God, thank you for the wonderful, precious truths and promises that are here. Thank you that, God, you are a God who restores, a God who redeems, that redemption is possible. When all seems lost, Lord, it's not lost with you, that all things are possible, not with man, but with God. And Lord, you have come to seek and to save the lost. You have come to provide redemption by removing our sins, by forgiving our trespasses, because Jesus has died on the cross. And he didn't just say he has power, he demonstrated that, and he demonstrated a resurrection life, and you give it to all who would turn. You say, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, no matter where they've come or where they have been. Easter is for everybody. The resurrection is for everyone. Jesus is alive. It's the message of all messages. It's the message of the nations. It's the message for everyone listening today. And God, I pray that you would bring your people home and restore today, right now, with nothing standing in the way, from putting their hope and trust in you. And I pray in Jesus' name, amen.